You're listening to the No Gray Areas podcast with Patrick McCullough. We welcome back Mark Parrish, a West Point grad and an executive leader. Him and Pat continue on the topic of character and explain why it should be the standard of everything. Let's dive in.
So, Mark, we're back together. This is our second episode together. It went so well the first time we had to come back and get some more info. Now, anybody that doesn't know or is just jumping onto this one, let me give a little background on you. So we met a few months ago. You have a fascinating story. You went to West Point. You flew Apache helicopters. You trained Israeli pilots. You went to MIT. You were in leadership in organizations like Harley Davidson, Igloo Cooler,
Simmons Mattress.
Yeah, and anybody watching, not listening, but watching, they would know that you went to West Point and I didn't, because you're sitting up straight. You still look like a West Point grad. I'm slouched. I look like a slob on the couch. So.
Well, for 4 years at the academy, you almost never touched the back of your chair.
Yeah,
that's just the way it is. So it becomes a part of life, a little like the honor code that we last spoke about.
Yep. Yeah. So let's unpack that a little bit more. Okay. So last time you were talking about the honor code. You're going to have to give it to us again.
Yes.
The second part of it we didn't get to talk about, which is such a critical part.
Yeah, we didn't talk about
that.
So
13 words.
13 words, and before we do it, for those that are watching, I've got 3 references, so I used these the last time we were together. I have 3 references from the Academy, in the order that they were issued.
Yes.
The Bible.
First day you were handed the Bible.
First day. It's embossed with your name. It's the only thing you get. The rest of the day you spent stamping things with ink, like your clothing and everything else. It had your name on it. The second article issued is the Cadet Bible.
Okay.
A complete reference to the holiness of it, but this is for your family business. Your family, you work for Uncle Sam, so it's family business. And in here are the principles and the values of the Academy. It's called Bugle Notes. The Cadet Bible is referred to historically as the Bugle Notes. And then the last one, which is a common task training manual, which says that you're common to all soldiers, and all soldiers in the Army are trained common tasks, and you will be too. And so this is your Bible during basic training. You are a soldier first. So those are the 3 references, and we'll probably get to them through the course of this.
Mark, I've told you this before, because we've met a couple of times. We've sat up on the patio at the place we're at.
We have.
I've enjoyed, like, you smoking a cigar. I love the smell of the cigars that you're smoking. And I've told you, man, I wish you were my history teacher, because you are a scholar with history. So unpack those 13 words, the honor code that you were doing.
Let's do that then. I think there's a proverb that says true wisdom. If you think on the wisdom hierarchy, that data yields information, and information yields trends to create knowledge, but knowledge extrapolated into the future is wisdom. So the wise sage elders have wisdom. They can tell you from the history what may unfold in your future.
Yes.
And so I share that from a perspective of the proverb, which is true wisdom begins with getting the words right. It's the words and their meaning. If I've been taught all my life that left is this way and right is that way, and you've been taught right is that way and left is this way, and I say go left and you go that way, you're doing exactly what you thought that word meant. And so it's about the wisdom that I'll share with you, the Cadet Honor Code.
Yeah.
So the Cadet Honor Code is that a cadet will not lie, cheat, or steal, nor tolerate those who do. Let's say it again. A cadet will not lie, cheat, or steal, nor tolerate those who do. That's the second part.
That's the part. So if our listeners didn't get to listen to the first episode with you, they need to go back and listen to it, because you unpack that first part in a marvelous way. But that second part, the first time you told me that just stood out to me, nor tolerate those who do.
Right.
Because that's what we leave out a lot in type. We think, well, it's about my integrity and my character and we're tying this to our mutual friend, No Gray Areas, Joe Gagliano, who wrote this book, when he started stepping into gray areas, when he started messing around with integrity, it wreaked havoc in his life.
Yes.
But we often don't think of the idea of not tolerating those who aren't showing integrity or walking with character.
Right.
So help us get that.
Sure, I'd be glad to. I think that if you go back to the rationale that I provided in our last episode, it's the idea that a profession, in this case the profession of arms, has a standard, a way of measuring to that standard, and a system to support it. And so when you think about the Hippocratic Oath of doctors, when you think about the lawyers with the bar,
a lot of professions
absolutely
have honor codes.
So the mission of the military academy to educate, train, and inspire the future leaders of character for the Department of Defense, and it's a review of last time. Yeah. But I referenced that because the standard is character. The metric is integrity. Integra, love, the root. And the measurement system is the honor system. So keeping that in mind, that's framework from the last episode that we'll pull into this now. So the idea of not lying, not cheating, not stealing, and defining that as honor is not that difficult. In fact, it's the inner wars of seeing someone else lie or cheat or steal and having a moral, ethical dilemma and still choosing, as the Cadet Prayer says, the harder right over the easier wrong. And so what I'd like to do, the harder right over the easier wrong. Choose the harder right over the easier wrong. Yeah. So I'll make two references out of the bugle notes. One is the exact sentence that encapsulates that. That would be the Cadet Prayer.
You know what, before you read this, can I just say, this is what I love about this conversation. It's been decades since you were in West Point, but you're still referencing the thing. So this has had a lifelong impact on you. That's what I love about it.
And we'll go into that in greater detail. So this is the Cadet Prayer. Oh God, our Father, make us to choose the harder right instead of the easier wrong, and never be content with a half-truth when the whole can be one. So if we use that as the basis of the concept of tolerance, of misconduct by that nature, choose the harder right over the easier wrong is the guiding principle, and it's at the core of the honor code.
Yes.
And so you see the connection between your conduct and a prayer. Yes. It's a very interesting tie-in. And so I read now the battalion orders issued by Brevet Major William Jenkins Worth, and I think it really addresses the unpacking of the second part of the code. May I?
Yes, please.
But an officer on duty knows no one. To be partial is to dishonor both himself and the object of his ill-advised favor. What would be thought of him who exacts of his friends that which disgraces him? Look at him who winks at and overlooks offenses in one, which he causes to be punished in another, and contrast him with the inflexible soldier who does his duty faithfully, notwithstanding and occasionally wars with his private feelings. The conduct of one will be venerated and emulated, and the other detested as a satire upon soldiership and honor.
Wow, that is so good and so packed full of truths, isn't it?
It is. So we, as we said in the last episode, I think there's a reference to the idea that when you fall under a code of ethics, at first, the first year of the academy, you may believe that you are compliant, that it's because you get punished and you're trying to avoid a punishment. Yeah. When in fact...
So if anybody were to watch the first year students at West Point, or maybe someone going through boot camp, they would think it's all about compliance, because that's what it looks like.
It is.
It is all about compliance.
And there's a great deal of fear because of that. Because at this point, you haven't learned the Uniform Code of Military Justice. You actually don't know yet the laws that govern you. The Uniform Code of Military Justice is a set of laws that's on top of civil justice laws. Yeah. So it's a tighter requirement.
So would you say compliance and fear, that you would say they go together?
It does. So this is very important.
Yes.
Compliance leads to fear. Fear leads to a power play. You want to know the people in power, and you want to, if you will, suck up to them. If you're in a culture of compliance, you have guidelines and policies, and you know you can't memorize them all. And in the real world, I guarantee you, I violate any of the companies I've been in. Yeah. I violate a company rule every day.
Policies and procedures.
Didn't wear the right glasses, didn't have this. So policies and procedures in a culture of compliance are the gospel. Yeah. You cannot violate. And if you do, don't talk to me.
Would you say that a lot of organizations are built around a culture of compliance?
I appreciate the reference of lot. It's all relevant.
Okay.
I mean, so it's relative perspective. So no, it's just the idea. I will not. We're all works in process.
Yes. Okay.
No, it's the idea that it's a continuum. Some organizations are more compliant. Some are lean towards the commitment. So you can define cultures as blue collared, white collar. You can define it as union, non-union. I'm choosing in this context to define it as cultures of compliance and cultures of commitment. So in cultures of compliance, it's the idea that you actually have rules and policies, and their governance, and they're the gospel, and they will not be violated. So when someone violates, it's black and white. Yeah. It's black and white, done. Nope,
you're not saying that's a bad thing. An organization has to have that.
You have to have structure. Yeah. Exactly.
Just like you did at West Point.
Exactly. Okay. And so there's cultures of compliance that have policies and procedures that build fear because no one can memorize all the policies and procedures. No one. And as a result of that, it creates a culture of politics. It's an inevitable conclusion. Politics is defined as the abandonment of principles for position. For inevitably, I appreciate it. Inevitably, when you are fearful of getting caught and you get caught, you sure do want to make sure that you know the guy in power.
Yes.
So it's one of these questions we'll come to. Is power given or is power taken in relationships? It's a deep one. We'll come back to that one. Let's talk about the other end of the spectrum.
I'm avoiding answering.
I know you are.
I got a 50-50
I love
chance.
This. All right, there you go. So in the cultural spectrum of commitment and compliance, you have to keep in mind that in a culture I've been in some of the finest in the world. And I think for the past 30-some years, I've been trying to replicate the culture of commitment that I experienced in what many people think is a compliant culture called the United States Army.
That's what you would think.
It was commitment. It's absolutely against the stereotype. I so enjoy it and try to replicate it in every leadership role I have. What I'm replicating is the idea that policies and procedures do exist. Like you said, every organization has policies and procedures. However, I want you to think about this for a moment, that when you break a policy or procedure, they are but mere guidelines, and in the Army never replaced the judgment of the commander. It's important to note, policies and procedures exist in cultures of compliance and in cultures of commitment. But in cultures, the most committed culture I've ever been a part of, in cultures of commitment they exist, and if you violate them, they're but mere guidelines. For you'll be judged on extenuation, mitigation, from a values perspective.
So a culture of compliance is fear-based.
Fear-based, yes.
What's a culture of commitment?
I really appreciate that. You're going to hear me say love-based.
Yes.
It's love-based. Why is it love-based? The measurement of a person's character, the actual metric, is integrity. The root of integrity is love. Like integers are whole, complete love. Yeah. And so
you realize that you're quoting a lot of things right now that come from the first book that you got when you went in there. The Bible talks a lot about that.
Indeed. It's why it's the use of references here. It's all tied together. Maybe that's the point. That for thousands and thousands of years or for 4 years, it's the same. Represented in different words. True wisdom begins with getting the words right. And so what we're working on now is a lexicon of honor. And so in cultures of commitment, people will give you their all. If they know that when they violate something they couldn't even remember, if it's some way they crossed the code, they know that you will judge them on their values and the principles, the universal truths that are not time-bound. And so it's really important, if you want to get the most out of people, that you embrace with love the ideal of good intentions and integrity as the foundation of your relationship with them. Don't catch people doing wrong, catch them doing right and let them know it. So that's how you build a culture of commitment.
Which is love versus fear.
Yes.
So what I hear you saying is the culture of commitment is fear-based and it's not all wrong. Every organization is going to have principles.
Culture of commitment
is
love-based.
Yes.
Cultures of compliance are fear-based.
I got that. Yes. Culture of compliance,
fear-based.
Procedures, policies, that's not all wrong. You're not saying it's a continuum.
Yes.
But if you have an organization, if you're running an organization, leading an organization, you want to be definitely moving toward having more of a culture of commitment, which is trust, love.
Some of the organizations that I've had the most pleasure of running, while I was chief of operations at Simmons Mattress, we were selected as one of Fortune's 100 most admired companies. Now think about that. If you don't know that's
incredible.
The leadership of the company doesn't contribute to that. It's actually the associates. We had 19 factories from Puerto Rico to Hawaii, 6 time zones. The associates on the hierarchy of authority are the ones who are interviewed by Fortune. So it's not me bragging about my company. It's folks who are being led that are bragging about their leadership and the results. My point being that when you lead with love from a place of integrity, people will blossom And we didn't change people. We didn't hire more people. Nothing happened. The only thing that changed is the culture. The culture went from one of compliance to one closer to commitment. And the end result is those persons who had been, I like to say, a cynic. A cynic, by definition, is a frustrated idealist. You want to listen.
Like that.
You want to listen to a cynic. A cynic is telling you the answer to your question through a complaint. Listen, sit down, be patient.
There's probably something to what they're saying.
Yeah.
So is that what
That's what I'm saying. So for 30-some years, you could work in a factory at Simmons. I'm using Simmons specifically because of the grand results that were delivered. The people stayed the same, but there was cynicism. Yeah, we've heard this. We'll wait till you leave. Those kinds of conversations. This is 20 years ago. But when they saw it, when they saw the words turn into action, the same people became inspired and contributed every day greater and greater towards the eve of their careers. I had one gentleman say, it wasn't until this era of our evolution, by the way, at his retirement after 40 years. That's why I have empirical data here. His comment was, after 40 years, I learned that 39 years were the same year over and over, and this last year would inspire me to serve 40 more. That's what the sway in
that's
compliance,
a culture of commitment.
That's culture of commitment. That's what we're talking about here.
Now let me go full circle. What's fascinating about this is, again, like you said earlier on, if someone were to look at a West Point where you went from 17 to 21 or 22, or they would look at that and think that's completely a culture of compliance. And you're saying it's not, that what they do is they move you into a culture of commitment.
Yeah, and it's a very programmatic approach to it with centuries of history. Yeah. And so if you think about a little bit of a fun fact, I think the number is somewhere just north of 56,000. How many people have graduated from the military academy since 1802? I think it's 56,000. It's shockingly small. Yeah, that people would say, oh, no, Notre Dame, whatever, you had this many people, and you multiply that by 220 years, and no, only 56,000. The first classes were 3 people, 5 people. So you have to think about the evolution of the academy. And yet, the honor code stands as a measurement of character based on the metric of integrity and the system to hold them accountable. So as we think about that, wouldn't it be nice if society had an honor code? What we have is laws. Yeah. And those laws are, you comply with the law. That's when society says that you've wronged your fellow man in an organized society. Wouldn't it be incredible if there was an ideal that all aspire to, that there was a United States honor code, and that every person would be held accountable, and self-accountability was a part of it? You might be surprised that some cadets actually turn themselves in.
You were telling me that there's a high percentage that they believe in this so much that when they break the honor code, they go.
That's commitment.
That's commitment.
That's not compliance.
So can I drop a little history? Which is, it's crazy that I get to do this to you because you're always sharing
Teach me. No, I love it.
But de Tocqueville, the French philosopher, who was exploring and looking into this democracy or republic that was starting, right? He said that this is only going to work with individual morality, or we would put it in your words, that this was only going to work if it was a land full of people with a culture of commitment, not a culture of compliance. He said that as our country was getting started.
It's amazing. It really is amazing. And so I say there's nothing novel in my approach to this, but if you think about creating, so the real question is, can you create a culture of commitment? No matter where you are on that continuum we've described, can you create a culture of commitment with intention? And so my answer to that is yes, that building a culture of commitment has an actual science. A lot of people think culture is art. There's a science to doing it. There's 5 fundamental disciplines and 7 subsequent ones that are actually disciplines. Discipline defined as the practice of that which is unnatural. It takes nothing to get up when you feel like it. But it takes discipline to get up every day at 4:30 and then begin your day with exercise. That's discipline, the practice of that which is unnatural. And so I offer that to build a culture of commitment, it's unnatural to the human condition. The human condition is don't trust anyone because you've been betrayed by others. The human condition is my job is to pass judgment on others. The human condition is to have a discussion where I'm entrenched. I'm entrenched in my position, and I'm going to get it in your head.
Yeah.
Daikus,
Yeah.
two people. Kus means to beat, to tear, to rip. So die.
I'm just wanting to win this.
I just want to win this thing. Versus versus dialogue.
Yeah.
Dialogue, dialogos, is two people. Logos means motion, energy, locomotive.
Yeah.
It means to dance with the other.
We've been dancing with each other during this.
It's been,
yes.
it's been my joy. You've been taking the lead.
You've been a great dance partner.
So when you think about the gift of trust and the suspension of judgment, don't make people earn it. Give it to them until they prove themselves unworthy. If you think then about the idea of suspending judgment, it takes discipline. It's not natural. You think you're supposed to pass judgment. So suspend your judgment and then use dialogue to engage in an exchange, a dance.
Can you imagine if we did this with each other?
This doesn't have to be the military. I'm saying, how about a code, a moral, ethical code of conduct in our life?
Yeah.
In our life. So when the transition happens in your inner core from compliance to commitment, it doesn't stop when you take the uniform off. And that's how all of this parlays into the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
And so I say the fourth and the fifth part of the fundamental 5 disciplines of building a culture of commitment, empowerment. A lot of folks misread the concept of empowerment meaning freedom. Complete freedom yields chaos.
Yeah.
And societies break down with complete freedom. It's freedom with fences. It's actually defining the principles by which we will interact that builds the foundation of a strong society.
You're quoting this again, my friend.
Preach your pack. Keep reminding me. I love it. I love it.
So what's the 5th one?
The 5th one is principle-centered decision-making. And it's vital because allow me, it's principle-centered decision-making vis-a-vis politics. So politics there's 3 ways of looking at politics, defined as abandoning principle for some gain or personal position. Okay, that's the definition. In this case, that's the definition of politics. I'm not talking about politicians in D.C. It may be relevant, but I'm not talking about them. This is the idea that there's 3 ways of looking at politics. Number 1, they exist. Number 2, they exist. Number 3,
they exist.
Okay. There's 3 different ways of looking at it. 1, they exist and you don't know it. And in the chess game of life, you're a pawn.
Yeah.
Pawn is weak and gets moved off the board.
Expendable.
Yeah, it's expendable. That's the first way of looking at it. You're not aware. I used to have a CEO who said, there are politics, but none here. And I remember thinking, that's actually when I first defined it and said, no, it exists, it exists, and it exists. Yeah, just unaware. So that's the first thing. And it's often the top dog that is not aware of the politics.
Yep. Higher you go in leadership, the less you know a lot of times.
Okay, so that was an example. The second one is they exist and you choose to play them. You're a politician. Whatever your realm or context, you're a politician. You choose to play. And the third way of looking at politics is they exist and you absolutely inoculate the culture with that which are principles articulated. So in other words, you stop in the moment, not 3 days later. If you see politics playing out, stop and then define the principle and then agree in relationship to move on from there. It's not like calling someone out and calling them a name. How dare you? Politics are real. They exist.
Yeah.
If you want to build a culture of commitment, stop when you discover one, when you see one. Hey, man, we just had a meeting in the boardroom. And we're standing here at the water fountain and you're taking a different position. What's up with that? That's how you stop it. You're actually calling it out.
So an organization that you were leading, if someone came in and said, Mark, there's some politics around here, you would say, of course there are.
Yes.
But we have principles in place and we're doing everything we can to fight against
values-based principles that allow for us to articulate. Please share with me what you saw as violation of policy or what you saw quite candidly as kissing up.
Yep.
And let's unpack that and determine what it is and then redefine our relationship going forward in the context of it's not name calling, it's not finger pointing. I like to say, don't fix blame, fix the problem. So it's just a way of thinking about it.
Yeah, that's a culture. I mean, so many cultures that people have worked in are kiss up and kick down cultures, but it's the culture of compliance, right?
Yeah.
that causes that.
That causes that. It's
and
the
not calling out
fear-based. Yeah, because you know it.
So, Mark, there's so much more. We're out of time, but there's so much more we could do with this. And I want people to learn more from you. I want to learn more from you. So tell us, how do we connect with you? How do we find out how we can learn more from
that's
you?
very kind of you. So I have before me on the table just to help everybody. So Parrish Partners is 20 years of existence, that which is leadership and management consulting. So even as I've been running businesses, my wife, Michelle, would take over the responsibility while I took my first chief executive role in a publicly traded company. And so from that, you can find us at www.parrishpartners.com. Parrish, two R's, Parrish, P-A-R-R-I-S-H, we like to say. So parrishpartners with a plural.com. Very easy to find us. You'll find seminars, training opportunities, inspirational speaking opportunities. We really like to focus on tailoring every solution for every one of our clients. And all we want to do, the way to say it is, your biggest challenges are our greatest opportunity.
Love that.
Thanks,
Mark. I hope a lot of people reach out to you, because in the few months I've known you, I have learned a tremendous amount. Thank you for taking your time. And man, I'm looking forward to the months and years ahead.
It's been my honor.
Yeah.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the No Gray Areas podcast. To dive deeper into the story, be sure to subscribe, follow us on social media, and check out nograyAreas.com.